Welcome to the Rehab Roundup. I'm your host, Dr. Hassan, board certified physiatrist and independent practice owner. I help physiatrists start and grow their own independent practice so that they can achieve financial independence and live without limits. I am super early. I was really efficient today, so as a result, I want to come on early. Dr. Ken, thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in. But also, I'm probably going to change the time. I think 4 p.m. is going to be a good time, so be on the lookout for that change. Always start with the weather. It's Dr. Celeste, thank you for tuning in. We always start with the weather, or I always start with the weather. It was 100 degrees, so it was actually relatively cool today. So still oppressive. Like I went out, saw some consults. I was just like, man, this is way too hot. But I think we're starting to cool down a little bit. So we're about to be in the paradise couple months in Arizona where it's just absolutely beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that. Today's topic is finding a billing company, choosing a billing company. So that's really important. Normally I like to give it about 5 minutes before people, to give people time to join in, tune in, and then we kind of get into it. So this is the little small talk portion of the segment. So just doing a little small talk. That is pulsating, oppressive heat. Don't forget oppressive. That heat is oppressive. Let's see. Cool things that happened today. Saw some consults. Also, I had a really interesting conversation with a group in the post-acute care space. And I'm working on a project. It was something I put on my vision board. And I think it's coming to fruition. So I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag just now. But if everything kind of goes the way that I think it will, then some big things coming up. So I'm excited about that. Got another meeting next week to kind of continue to talk about it and develop it. But that's something on the horizon. So that's pretty cool. Excited about that. Just advocating for patients. So some patients, certain diagnoses, people just kind of throw them away and forget about them. So I saw a patient today that kind of fits in that category. And I think a lot of people who may not have a background in rehab may have just said, just send that patient home. But I disagree. So going to try and get that patient into rehab and get them better. So I'm excited about that opportunity. Had a chance to talk to the case manager and explain my thought process. It's always a good idea to explain what you're thinking, because what you're thinking may be so different from what everyone else is thinking. It's important to have that explanation so that they understand what you do and how you're different. And that way, that will also kind of, Andrea, thank you for joining in. That'll also help kind of really keep you top of mind, but also get them in the habit of really reaching out to you when they have cases that they're not really sure about. So that's a pro tip. Always talk, always communicate to really let them know what's going on, because that's going to be super helpful. So all right, I think we've reached that 5-minute mark, so we're going to get into it. This is Rehab Roundup. I'm your host, Dr. Hassan, board certified physiatrist and independent practice owner. I help physiatrists start and grow their own independent practice so that they can achieve financial independence and live without limits. Today we are talking about choosing a billing company. This is a super important step in building your profitable practice. Why? Because the billing company basically processes your claims. So if you have a company that does this efficiently, accurately, and effectively, that's really going to be a positive for your revenue. On the flip side, if you have a company that does not do that, that's going to be a negative for your revenue. So you want to do your research. You want to find a company that has a solid reputation. Reputation is important. You can do that by going to the different societies that they have for individuals that do billing. You can look for certain certifications, or you can just kind of tap into some of the different practices or providers in that area and see if they know anyone. So word of mouth can be a way to do that as well. So when you are considering a billing company, big thing is going to be you want to keep or retain the highest the highest percentage of revenue you possibly can. Is there a national company? I recommend. Not necessarily. What I did was I went with a company that was local that some of the big hospitalist groups use. And I found that to be pretty successful. But I also used a company out of Illinois when I was practicing out there, and they were pretty good as well. And we'll kind of talk about, size of companies and, some of the pros and cons of that. So hopefully that'll give you a little more information on that. So your goal is to basically pick a company that will help you achieve the goal of retaining the highest percentage of your revenue possible. And that comes in the different forms of the pricing, and we'll talk about pricing real quick. So in terms of size, so Dr. Celeste, most companies can kind of be put into the category of small, medium, or large. So for your small companies, though, Dr. Phil, thank you for tuning in. In terms of small companies, those are really kind of your mom and pops companies. A lot of times these are actually run out of the house. Now, pro is you get a lot of face time and interaction with these companies, but one of the cons is they may not necessarily have access to resources that could be helpful. So that's one thing to look at or consider when you're choosing a smaller company. Then you have medium-sized companies. You don't have as much interaction, although the trade-off is they have a little bit more in terms of resources, as opposed to some of the national companies. With the national companies, what you run into is there's not a lot of interaction or face time, but they have a lot in terms of resources, and that may be helpful in terms of negotiating beneficial reimbursement rates with the insurance companies. Medicare is kind of, Dr. Erica, thank you for joining in. Medicare is kind of the gold standard. That's what most commercial companies go off of. Some will pay a little bit above and some will pay below, but that's kind of like that gold standard. So what you want to do is look up the Medicare fee schedule in your particular area, what they're paying at the different codes for the procedures or just the visits that you do. And then based on that, depending on if you're with a small, medium, or large company, really negotiate based on that, trying to see if you can get the best rates possible. So in terms of pricing, it's kind of really three options. You have pricing based on percentage, based on fee-based, and then based on a hybrid model. So basically percentage pricing is they take a percentage of your gross or net revenues. Fee-based is they charge you a flat fee for the different claims, and then hybrid is you get a little bit of both. Now, when you're talking about pricing, what you want to do is you want to pick the pricing structure that also has the billing company have skin in the game. So you want to pick pricing where they have just as much incentive processing those claims and collecting as you do. So what I find is, and the most common pricing structure is percentage of collections. So if you think about it, and that can be anywhere from 4 to a high of 12%. Really, I think the sweet spot is anywhere from like 5 to 7%, because sometimes the lower the percentage of collections, you get what you pay for. So they may not be charging you a lot, but they may not collect a lot of your revenue. So 5 to 7% is really that sweet spot in terms of a billing company, and the percentage of collections that they charge. So you want to look for a company that's charging you about 5 to 7%. Some of the other things that you want to look for are what other services do they charge you for, and what services are included. So this can come in the form of credentialing. So in my particular practice, I'm credentialed at a lot of the acute care hospitals, so I can do consults and really kind of drive where patients go and make recommendations. Certain billing companies may charge you to get credentialed at different hospitals, but if you think about it, it's really a plus for the billing company, because the more hospitals you're on staff, the more opportunities you could potentially see patients, and as a result, generate revenue or claims that can be processed. So you want to think about that. To get licensure or credentialed in other states, they may charge you for that. So you want to figure out, hey, what's included versus what's going to be extra in terms of you charging me. You want to figure out what type of reports you're going to get. It's going to be really important to get very robust reports. You really want to focus on your accounts receivable. You want to know where the money is. You want them to have a platform where you can check this. I like to do it in real time. So I like to log in, like, after I'm done with the Rehab Roundup, get on the computer and see, how much revenue I've made month to date, But you also want to see, where you are previous month, previous year, so forth and so on. So you really want to have robust reports that give you an accurate picture of what your revenue is and how much you've generated, because that's your money. That helps you plan out what you're going to do for the month, how to pay your bills, so forth and so on. You also want reports that tell you, what providers have not paid you in 30, 60, and 90 days. Because if it goes past a certain amount, anything past 60 to 90 days, you may have to get the individual who's over the insurance plans in your particular state to get involved and say, hey, I'm having issues with X company, and they're supposed to pay me in X amount of days, and they continuously, Dr. Pradeep, thank you for tuning in. They constantly pay me over 60 days. And then, hopefully that insurance auditor can kind of contact them and kind of get the ball rolling. But you really want to know where your revenue is 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and sometimes 120 days out. Because again, that's your cash flow, and that cash flow impacts your business. Also, I think finally, you want a billing company that's going to be very responsive to your questions. Starting out, you're going to be very anxious and you're going to have a lot of questions because you're not necessarily going to understand everything that's on those report sheets. I know one of the big things that I didn't really understand until after a while was charges. So most billing companies charge anywhere from 150 to 200% of Medicare. They do that for different reasons because they're trying to capture revenue from commercial plans, so forth and so on. But when you look at your charges are going to be extremely high. But then when you look at your revenue or your collections, it's going to be lower. And that's going to throw you off. You're going to be like, hey, we charged X amount of dollars and I only got paid or generated revenue of this much. What's going on? So they really had to go over that multiple times with me. But, with the billing company, they did a good job of kind of explaining everything. And it put me and helped me to feel more at ease. And as a result, I definitely have a much better understanding. So you want a company that's going to be very responsive when you have any type of question about billing. So that's going to be something that you have to consider as well. So big things are reputation. We're going to talk about your goal of keeping the highest percentage of revenue possible. You want to consider size. You want to consider pricing. You want to consider what other services they charge you for. You want to consider your reporting system, and you want them to answer your questions in a timely fashion. So those are all factors and things you want to think about when you are choosing a billing company. This is the Rehab Roundup. I'm your host, Dr. Hassan, board certified physiatrist and independent practice owner. I help physiatrists start and grow their own independent practice so that they can achieve financial independence and live without limits. If you have any physiatrist friends, please invite them to the Rehabpreneurs group. Share this, like this. If you're catching it on replay, please put hashtag replay. Also, I will throw, and I threw it in there already, but I'll throw it in there again. The link to my scheduling platform so we can get on a 15-minute strategy session and talk about how you can build, grow, and just be more efficient in your physiatry practice. So thank you guys. Like I said before, probably going to change it to 4 p.m. Going forward as things kind of change in my schedule. So thank everybody for tuning in who tuned in, and I will see you next week.